Welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. My name is Caleb. I'm a startup junkie, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Jeff Amerine and Victoria Dickerson. How are y'all this morning?
Good.
Doing great. Glad to be back on. It's been a while.
It has been a while, a little brief hiatus. We are excited to be joined today by our guest, Michail Myburgh. He is with Backed, and we're excited to hear the story of Backed today. How's it going?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, what is Backed for those of our listeners that are unfamiliar with this startup?
So, in essence, Backed is a online business lender. So it's pretty straightforward. We try and finance businesses, small to medium-sized businesses. We're kind of industry agnostic, so any business that needs capital can come to Backed, and we'll give them finance, short-term working capital, or a line of credit.
Awesome. So, what was the kind of genesis of this project? And was this a solo project for you, or you have co-founders? How did that come together?
So the company was founded, in essence, I founded it with my brother. Before Back, we had a similar company in South Africa, which is where we're from. We started that company in 2014, my brother and I, and we built it up over the period of about 7 years. Eventually becoming one of the largest, or if not the largest, small business finance company of its nature within the country. So we built that up over the period of 7 years, and then eventually we sold it. And then we came to the US with the same idea to kind of do the same thing, to build up another company, just obviously tackling a much bigger market, more entrepreneurial environment. So that was kind of the genesis of the company. Initially, it was kind of an expansion of our South African business. So we expanded the South African business to the US, but then as it unfolded, we eventually just sold the South African business, and that's kind of the genesis of the US business. Where it is its own entity today. It has no ties anymore to the old company. It's kind of completely separate.
Talk a little bit about your ideal customer. Who's the ideal customer that would engage you, and what's the way that clients should think about using Backed versus going to a traditional bank?
So our ideal client is basically a growing business. We don't really care what industry the business is in. We don't really care about the size. I mean, our client base varies significantly from clients making 200, 300 K in revenue a year to clients making upwards of $100 million in revenue a year. So kind of that small to medium-sized business space. And the ideal client is just a business that's growing. The mission of Backed is to help companies grow, to help businesses grow. And kind of the idea for us, or the ideal client for us, would just be a company that's growing, and any business that's growing needs capital. I mean, it's the number one problem for any business. So at that point, a company can come to us. We'll help them out. All our financing is short term. We like to joke and say it's kind of like a pregnancy. 9 months and we're out of your hair. But yeah, it's kind of that small to medium-sized business that's growing, that needs capital. Because they're growing, they need to buy stock, they need to buy another, they want to expand, they want to buy another branch. So that's kind of where we fit.
Is it typically unsecured, or do you secure it with assets or personal guarantees? How would a deal typically work?
No, it's unsecured. So it's not asset-backed finance, which is where we're differentiated from the banks. So normal banks, community banks, the space they play in is asset-backed finance, right? So they'll want to securitize any financing you secure from them. So either buy equipment, cars, properties. That's really the space they play in. Whereas we're more of an unsecured lender. We're quick, we're easy. But obviously because we're unsecured, the cost is a bit higher. So we're usually not the main source of funding for our clients. It's usually to take advantage of an opportunity. Yeah, and it's kind of that, you need a bit of capital to buy stock, inventory, for the holiday season, etc. That's where we come into play.
Gotcha.
So take us through the process of how a potential borrower might engage with you guys, and just kind of the timeline for approval, what requirements are there, and just kind of when you could expect to take advantage of that.
So, I mean, that's really where we shine. I mean, there are a couple of different ways a client might end up with us, but mostly you can go to our website, you fill in a quick application. At that stage, we'll ask the client to link his bank accounts, and that data gets our credit model. We also have a couple of credit analysts look at the deal, and then usually within a day, we'll either approve the financing, the amount, and sometimes we can even pay out within a day, which is vastly different from normal financing experiences where it could take months, weeks or months. Our efficiency and our quickness is really, really where we shine. So very, very quick decision making on our part.
That's awesome. I think the quick turnaround time is definitely something that's unique to you guys. What would be your best piece of advice to maybe a small business that's in that growing stage, that's looking to expand, and they're looking to receive funding for the very first time? What would be the steps that you would recommend that they go through or make sure that they have prepared?
Well, I think it kind of depends on the amounts they're looking for. It also depends on the type of financing you're looking for. So if you need to take advantage of an opportunity, maybe it's unforeseen, that's where we can help out a lot. It's kind of almost the way to think about it is we're kind of like a credit card facility for a business. So it's not your permanent capital structure. And kind of advice I would give businesses is, finance can be very good, especially if you're using it for growth. So it's kind of what you would use the finance for, which is the most important thing. If you're buying stock, if you're buying inventory, if you're buying a competitor, that's ideal use cases for our finance. If you're going out and buying a boat, I would say it's probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
No. But I mean, when it comes to advice and stuff, these entrepreneurs usually know their business way better than we do. So we do trust them, and usually they make the best decisions for their businesses.
In the environment that we're in, where we've got interest rates that are increasing cost of capital, talk about how you manage through that, and kind of, if you're willing to, kind of where a client could expect to be in terms of an interest rate on the money they would take from you. How's that look?
So to be honest, it varies greatly. It's the cost is similar to what you'd expect from let's say a credit card facility. So it is more expensive finance than asset-backed finance. Mm-hmm. But typically, as I mentioned, these are unsecured facilities. Mm-hmm. In terms of the environment, we really like to partner with businesses that are growing. So even in a bad business environment, we tend to want to be the premium lender within the market and within the industry. So our client base, we kind of want to partner with those businesses that can really use our finance to grow. So it's not what you would. It's kind of a business in trouble that and that's why they would come to us.
You froze up on us there for just a second. But tell us about yourself. I mean, was the startup in South Africa the first project y'all worked on, and kind of what has been your entrepreneurial journey?
So my background is kind of in finance. I studied finance, and then also I did a CFA charter and chartered alternative investment charter. But we've always been entrepreneurs. At school, my brother and I at a couple of businesses. We used to have a squash academy, and then I studied, and then as soon as I finished studying, we started our first company, which was a property company. We did a couple of student housing projects, some commercial projects, and that's kind of really where the idea stemmed from. As being entrepreneurs ourselves, we always had, issues with finance. That was always one of the most difficult aspects of running a business, is getting access to capital, and that was especially true in South Africa, which is almost a constant recessionary environment. I mean, the country hasn't really grown in dollar terms in about 12 years. So we really, we had entrepreneurship by fire, if you want to put it like that. So it was a tough environment. We always struggled to raise capital. There isn't really a venture capital environment like there is in the US. So that was the start of our entrepreneurial journey, and really where we identified that this is a massive need, and this is very important for business owners to have that easy access to capital, especially if you're a growing business. So that was sort of the background. I never really worked for a corporate or in a typical environment. But yeah, that's where we started in the property company, and then in 2014 we started the financing company, and then we expanded to the US, and then we also have a sister company, which is a technology company. So all the technology that we write within Backed, we do within our sister technology company, and then that company tries to license out the software that we create.
Where do you see it all going? So you built a solid business. This is not your first go at this. You've obviously got a lot of experience. What's it look like over the next 3 to 5 years? What does winning look like for you?
Well, it's kind of exciting to be in this growth phase. I don't know what scale the business can reach, but what I do know is that there is tremendous demand for the product. We try and tend to think about sort of first principles where, how do you get to a business at the point where he needs financing most? So when and where does he need financing the most? On the one side, and how do you make the financing as affordable as possible, so as low to zero as you possibly could. So trying to think about those two goals. So where can you meet the client, and how do you get the financing to be as low as possible? That's kind of where we're thinking about solving the next couple of issues, and goals within the company. So developing new products that kind of solve those two pillars is kind of where we see the company going. Currently we have a working capital product and a line of credit product, but it still requires the business to come to us to request those products. Whereas now we're trying to think about, okay, how do we meet the client where he needs it? How do we present our finance or our solution to the client in the best possible way? So that's kind of where the business is going. For me, a win would be just to keep on growing, because as we grow, it kind of it tells you that there still is a need.
Yeah,
and there still is a market for this.
In recent years, there's been this sort of interesting hybrid approach to venture finance, which was revenue based, tied to a percentage of revenues, and then sometimes so that you have a pop on the back end, people will get warrant coverage and that sort of thing, so that if the company grows and expands and exits or gets acquired, there's not just the money that you make on whatever you've loaned or whatever you've invested on that sort of revenue basis. There's also money on the back end. Do you see injecting any of that kind of creativity into your model as you go along?
Yes, possibly. So we try and partner with a lot of SaaS businesses.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a new market for us. And for us, a lot of businesses go out, and the first thing they want to raise is, or whenever they need capital, they sort of go to venture capitalists, which is great. But ultimately, the most expensive form of finance is equity finance. So we kind of want to, help these businesses where they don't need to dilute the whole time. I mean, having the right equity partner can be very important, and is probably very important, but it shouldn't be necessary every single time. Because ultimately you are giving away portions of your business, and that's not always ideal.
Sure.
So these are some of the problems we're kind of looking to solve.
Got it.
And you're solving those problems from Austin, Texas, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're based in Austin, Texas.
So what
we do
led
have clients all over the country, though.
What led to kind of planting your flag there?
It just made a lot of sense, to be honest. Texas is a massive growing economy. It's in the center of the US. The regulatory environment is favorable. It's got low taxes. Employees can still, afford the cost of living. So we kind of looked at a couple of locations. New York and California was the obvious first two, states to pop up. But the more we looked into it, the more we found that those states are very expensive, especially for your employees. And if you're not raising, hundreds of millions from VCs, I think it must be difficult to start a business in those environments now. So Texas kind of just popped up as this new growth state, that supporting all these new startups. So it just became obvious for us, and Austin is a very nice environment. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent moving to Austin. So yeah, that's kind of where we made our decision. And it seems to have been the right one looking back at it now.
So nobody confuses your accent with like a West Texas accent.
Not yet.
Keep up to date on the latest news in economic development with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission's Arkansas Inc. newsletter. Each month, get the Arkansas Inc. newsletter, which spotlights the latest project wins and developments throughout the state, delivered to your email. The newsletter features major project announcements, company expansions and relocations, news articles, rankings, and more that highlight why Arkansas is a great state to do business. The newsletter is a snapshot of what AEDC has been working on and what we are following. The quarterly Tech Trends newsletter highlights the latest news in Arkansas's growing tech sector. You can learn about new Arkansas tech companies, computer science and cybersecurity initiatives, funding and venture capital announcements, and even more. AEDC offers 4 quarterly newsletters: the Food and Beverage Industry Digest, Aerospace and Defense Beacon, Timber Trends, and Tech Trends. To learn more or sign up for a newsletter, visit arkansasedc.com/news.
Talk a little bit about you're building this fast-growing finance company, and you're in a cool spot in Austin. That's a great environment to find talent and whatnot. Talk about the culture of the company and what you're doing to build this sort of resilient, lasting culture that will be attractive to talent.
Well, ultimately, the way we see it is that our greatest asset is, our employees and the people that make the company. So it's very important for us to get the right talent, and to create a culture where, everyone can thrive. And the way we do it, for instance, there was a big move towards work from home in the last while. We kind of went the opposite direction. We found that it's almost impossible to build culture, to build friendships, to build, an environment if everyone works from home. So we kind of said, look, we need most of our employees to be in office. So that's one of the ways we kind of said, look, that this is how we want to build culture, is by getting everyone together. Ultimately, the people make the culture. So, we try and be a fun working environment, very driven, by employing very driven employees. And then ultimately their interactions, and the way, we kind of try and feed culture down from the top, from the top down is how we enforce this. So we do the normal startup stuff. We do yoga in the office and we do all this stuff. But to me, that's not really culture.
Sure.
That's just the fun things we add as benefits. But the culture of the company is always how do we approach problems? How do we solve problems? How do we work together? Do we support each other? That really to us is what culture is within an organization. And the best way just to do that is by showing an example, and hopefully that feeds down to the rest of your team. And then just putting these people together.
Great.
I guess.
I'm just-
go ahead.
I just have one more question kind of before we wrap up. I'm curious what it's like working with a brother in a startup situation. You guys said that you have been entrepreneurial for a long time. What is that dynamic like? Because I know that there's a lot of founders and small business owners that we know that are also in business with their family. So how do you guys manage it? How do you make it work?
It's horrible.
Talk about that.
Don't do it. That's fine. I'm joking. No, it's great working with my brother, and it's great working. I have some other friends that also joined the company as we grew. I like to joke and say no one else wanted to join us, so I had to, get some of my friends to join the company. But I think ultimately, when you are looking for a partner in business, you need someone that you can trust. So obviously my brother does fill that role. In terms of everyday working, we do fight a lot, and we constantly argue about solutions to everything, which I kind of think is a strength, because at least you'll always have someone that disagrees with you,
Definitely.
and then you can hear the opposite side of the argument, which is way better than just having a couple of yes men. So that kind of is our environment. We're brothers. We fight a lot. We argue a lot, but ultimately, we do trust one another, and yeah, it's been fun. I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else, to be honest.
That's awesome. Definitely having someone in your corner that you can butt heads with and know at the end of the day that they still love you.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of is a family business in that way, but it's just the way it evolved. I remember being at university, I wanted to drop out. I gave my mom a call and I said, look, this university thing is great. This degree is probably great, but I just want to start a business with my brother. So it's kind of just wasting time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did your mom talk you out of that, or is that what you ended up doing?
No, she talked me out of it. She said finish your degree and then you can do
whatever you want. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Very good.
We like to land the plane by inviting our guests to kind of hop in their time machine and go back to, before their first startup or back and have a conversation with their younger selves. If you had that opportunity, what advice would you give your younger self before you started it all?
That's kind of an easy question for us, because the advice I would give is just go to the US. Just come to the US. Don't waste time anywhere else. This environment for a business owner is just absolutely amazing. There's no other place on earth where I think you can build these businesses as effectively as you can. To me, there's a reason why Google, Facebook, Apple, they were all founded within the US. The size of the market, the amount of support you can get, the resources you have, it's just amazing. So any advice I would give an entrepreneur when they're young is just get to the US, then figure it out. We originally just took the approach of, start a company and then expand it to the US. But I think ultimately this is the environment you should be in. This is where you should, if you have an idea, if you really want to start a business, do it in the US, and then take it from there.
Got me feeling patriotic over here.
I tell you what, though, I think I really appreciate those comments for lots of reasons. I've done a lot of international business over the years, and I think sometimes we take for granted what's all around us in the U.S. The fact that entrepreneurialism is respected and supported and appreciated, and that's not universally true everywhere. So I really appreciate your comments. Those are Those are great and spot on. And they mean a whole lot more coming from somebody that's got the perspective of having tried to build things in other places as well.
Yeah, the amount of difficulty, and this is the thing, the effort is the same.
Mhm.
It's not less difficult or more difficult. The effort is the same.
Mhm.
It's just the scale and the reward at the end of the day it's not even 10 times the amount. It's 100 times the amount.
Mhm.
This country really it supports businesses. It supports business owners. There's a whole industry around just getting capital to business owners. I mean, we're part of that industry.
Mhm.
So it is. I mean, the US. I read somewhere that the US has 60 of the top 100 companies, top 100 biggest companies, and it makes sense. I mean, it's just in this environment where that could be possible. So yeah, that's the advice I would give any young entrepreneur that's not in the US. I know it is difficult sometimes getting to the country, but this is where you want to be.
Absolutely. That's great. Where can our listeners find out more about you or the company? What's the best way for them to find out more?
Well, the easiest is just to go to our website. It's backd.com. There's no E in there. So just go to our website. We have quite a few resources, on our blog about financing, how to get financing. And then if they do need capital, just, apply and, take it from there.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. And best of luck to you with all the next steps. And we're glad you're here in the States building a great business.
I'm also glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Right.
So thanks.
Thank you. Take
Yeah.
care.
Thank you.
Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.